Hari Bol, Danvat Pranams to Ritesh Prabhu, Pawan Prabhu, all the dear devotees. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namaham Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminati Namine. Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyatadeshtarine. जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा वेलकम everybody to our morning japa sangha. Okay, so as we always do, we will pray for protection and purification through our prayers to Vaishnavas. Prayers written and composed by our Vaishnavacharyas are very, very potent and powerful. Prayers open the doors of our hearts. We cannot open, the only thing we can do is we can pray. But ultimately, the removal of Maya's curtain can only be done by the Lord, by the mercy of Vaishnavacharyas, by the mercy of the Lord. So that is what these prayers do. They help us seek the mercy with which the darkness of the illusion of ignorance can be removed, and the light of knowledge of devotional can be enlightened in our heart, and the doors to the altars of our hearts can open, and we can have darshan of the Lord in our heart, as many of our pure acharyas have taught us. So let's pray to Sri Yamuna Maharani by Sri Yamunashtakam, composed by Sri Rupa Goswami. Anybody else would like to sing today? Okay, you can sing along then while you're on mute. Hari Bol. Okay. भ्रातुरन्तकस्य पत्तने बिभक्तिहारिणि प्रेक्षयाति पापिनोऽपि पापसिन्धुतारिणि नीरमाधुरीभिरप्यशेषचित्तबन्धिनि मां पुनातु सर्वदारविन्दबन्धुनन्दिनि हारिवारिधारयाभिमण्डितोरु खाण्डवा पुण्डरीकमण्डलोद्यखण्डजालिताण्डव स्नानकामपामरोग्रपापसम्पदन्दिनि मां पुनातु सर्वदारविन्दबन्धुनन्दिनि शीकराभिमृष्टजन्तुदुर्विपाकमर्दिनि नन्दनन्दनान्तरङ्गभक्तिपूरवर्धिनि तीरसङ्गमाभिलाषि मङ्गलानुबन्धिनि मां पुनातु सर्वदारविन्दबन्धुनन्दिनि द्वीपचक्रवालजुष्टसप्तसिन्धुभेदिनि श्रीमुकुन्दनिर्मितोरुदिव्यकेल्यवेदिनि कान्तिकान्दलीभिरेन्द्रनीलवृन्दनिन्दिनि मां पुनातु सर्वदारविन्दबन्धुनन्दिनि माथुरेण मण्डलेन चारुणाभिमण्डिता प्रेमनद्धवैष्णवादवर्धनाय पण्डित ऊर्मिदोर्विलासपद्मनाभपादवन्दिनि मां पुनातु सर्वदार विन्दबन्धुनन्दिनि रम्यतीररम्भमाणगोकदम्बभूषिता दिव्यगन्धवाकदम्बपुष्पराजिरूषिता नन्दसूनुभक्तसङ्गसङ्गमाभिनन्दिनि मां पुनातु सर्वदार विन्दबन्धुनन्दिनि फुल्लपक्षमल्लिकाक्षहंसलक्षकूजिता भक्तिविद्धदेवसिद्धकिन्नरालिपूजिता तीरगन्धवाहगन्धजन्मबन्ध रन्दिनी मां पुनातु सर्वदार विन्दबन्धुनन्दिनि चिद्विलासवारिपूरभूर्भुवस्वरापिनि कीर्तिदापि दुर्मधुरु पापमर्मतापिनि पल्लवीन्द्रनन्दनागरागभङ्गगन्धिनि मां पुनातु सर्वदार विन्दबन्धुनन्दिनि तुष्टबुद्धिरष्टकेन निर्मलोर्मिचेष्टितां त्वामनेन भानुपुत्री सर्वदेव वेष्टितां यस्तवीति वर्धयस्व सर्वपापमोचने भक्तिपूरमस्य देवि पुण्डरीकलोचने Mam punatu sarvadara vindabandhu nandini. Mam punatu sarvadara vindabandhu nandini. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. श्री अमनाष्टकम की जय, रसाचार्य श्री रूप गोस्वामी की जय, जगत गुरु श्री प्रभुपाद की जय, निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल. Translations, anybody would like to read? Okay, yeah, Meenakshi Moini would like to read. All right. Shri is the daughter.
May Sri Yamuna, who is the daughter of Suryadev, who saves one from having to enter the city of her brother Yamaraj, the sight of whom enables the most sinful persons to cross the ocean of sin, and the sweetness of whose water charms the hearts of everyone, always purify me. May Sri Yamuna, who is the daughter of Suryadev, who decorates the great Khandava forest with a stream of pleasant waters, who is filled with lotus flowers and dancing birds, and who blinds the terrible sins of they who desire to bathe in her, always purify me. May Sri Yamuna, who is the daughter of Suryadev, a drop of whose water destroys the sinful reactions of people, who creates a great flood of confidential pure devotional service to Lord Nandanandan, and who brings auspiciousness to they who desires to live in her shore, always purify me. May Sri Yamuna, who is the daughter of Suryadev, who devised the 7 oceans and 7 continents, who witnessed many of Lord Mukunda's transcendental pastimes, and whose splendor rebukes a host of sapphires, always purify me. May Sri Yamuna, who is the daughter of Suryadev, who is decorated by the beautiful district of Mathura, who expertly protects they who follow the path of loving devotional service, and who, with the playful motions of waves that are her arms, offer respectful obeisances to Lord Padmanabh's feet, always purify me. May Sri Yamuna, who is the daughter of Suryadev, whose charming shows are decorated with many lowing cows, who is filled with many splendid and fragrant kalamba flowers, and who is delighted to have the company of Lord Sri Krishna's devotees, always purify me. May Sri Yamuna, who is the daughter of Suryadev, who is filled with the wrogglings of thousands of joyful Malika swans, who is worshipped by the Vaishnavas, Devatas, Siddhas, and Kinnaras, and the slightest scent of the fragrant breeze moving on whose shores stops the cycle of repeated birth and death, always purify me. May Sri Yamuna, who is the daughter of Suryadev, who is the famous, splendid spiritual river flowing through the Bhu, Bhuvaha, and Swaha planets, who burns away the greatest sin, and who is fragrant with scented ointments from Lord Krishna's transcendental body, always purify me. O lotus-eyed one, O daughter of Suryadev, O rescuer from all sins, please flood with pure devotional service that person who, reciting these 8 prayers with a cheerful heart, glorifies you, whose waves are pure and splendid, and who is accompanied by all the demigods. Srimana Maharani ki jai.
Evil, thank you so much. Yes, so these prayers by acharyas give us protection and purification. So, like that, Srila Prabhupada, Leelamrit, we're reading chapter 51. Prabhupada is also trying to protect this world and purify them by giving them pure devotional service. So, yesterday we saw Prabhupada is in Bombay and he's talking to these political leaders. Mr. Rajda, who's from the Janata Party, who has now come to power after Congress's departure. And he's saying that it's very important. He was very sincere and serious that at least he came to see Srila Prabhupada and he was offering obeisances and he was listening attentively. He was knowledgeable in Sanskrit, etc. But yeah, Prabhupada could see his sincerity, and he said, "And now you have a nice opportunity. You're in government. You have helped protect this temple in the past. Now you should take this process seriously." Because, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, yad yad acharati shreshtas tat tat devitaro janaha. As you know, leaders of the society do, so common men will follow. And what examples they set by their standards, people will replicate them. So It is important that leaders are Krishna conscious. So Prabhupada was teaching him how to elevate from the mundane material platform where party politics is the norm, and he's thinking that his party will do better than the previous party, etc. And Prabhupada says that again and again, like, all whatever we do, ultimately everything will be finished here, right? If it is all on the material platform. So we have to elevate ourselves to the spiritual, transcendental platform. And yeah, so like that, he was teaching him, and as a guru, as a acharya, he was also teaching the significance of Guru Puja. He was saying because Guru comes to give this Divya Gyan, which is Hriday Prakashito, right? So this Divya Gyan, transcendental spiritual knowledge, is enlightened in our heart by the mercy of Guru. And that is what again these prayers do. When we pray to these acharyas, pure devotees of the Lord, they are more merciful than the Lord. And by their mercy, this darkness of illusion that we have in our heart, or the curtain of Maya, is removed, and we can see, have darshan of the Lord in our heart, because the Lord is there. He's the closest friend than any other friend. Right? In the world, we meet and greet our friends. We say good morning or good day, etc. I was just wondering, sometimes at office, most of us are working professionals. We would have seen we try to greet somebody good morning. Nowadays, earlier, the previous yugas, it was all about God, right? Satyuga, Treta, and it was all God, God. Now people have added O to that and it becomes good, right? So people think instead of forget God, just say good morning, good evening, good night, etc. And nowadays, if you at work, if you notice people say good morning, they will not even say good morning, they'll just say morning. Or in the emails also, people will just write morning. So even the good is gone now. So earlier it was God, they added O to it to make it good. Now even good is gone. It's just morning or evening, right? They don't even say good. So that is the that is the situation in the world right now. That people are just forgetting God. People are even forgetting goodness now, because if you forget God, even goodness will be gone. And now what is remaining after the OD and OOD both are gone? Just the GED, just the GED is remaining, right? So it's kind of Great Depression or grief and devastation. That is what is remaining. So anyway, so Prabhupada is teaching as Acharya, what is Divya Gyan, Hriday Prakashito, what is the significance of performing Guru Puja, true spiritual master. He doesn't teach us about eating, mating, sleeping, defending, which all the other leaders, business leaders, political leaders are teaching to the common man. But a bona fide spiritual master comes to give this transcendental spiritual knowledge by which we can end this miserable cycle of life and death, and we can go back home to our eternal abode to be in the joyful eternal pastimes of the Lord. Okay, so let's continue here. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Shri Shri Guru Ashtaka Vaishnava Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Not only was Prabhupada reminding his disciples that he hadn't forgotten them, but he was also reminding them that they should not be absent from the Guru Puja and worshipful thoughts of the spiritual master, even if he was not able to personally come before them. Srila Prabhupada mostly stayed alone in his room, and during the day he would move from one desk to another, either to dictate the Bhagavatam, to take prasadam, or to speak to guests. He was especially prolific at his writing. Rising at 1 or 2 in the morning, he would dictate 90, 100, and occasionally almost 200 digits on his dictating machine. This was more than he had done in months. But he had little appetite. He could not eat anything heavy, and sometimes he had no appetite even for a cup of milk. Palika Dasi, and sometimes Shirachor Gopinath, a Bengali devotee, were the cooks. Srila Prabhupada liked Hirachor's Gopinath's shukta, made from neem leaves, eggplant, bitter melon, potato, sweet potato, and yogurt. One morning, Srila Prabhupada asked for orange juice, but there were no oranges in the kitchen. Gopinath ran to get them, but when he returned, Srila Prabhupada was ringing his bell. Gopinath rushed in and told him, "I'm just coming. It takes time to make the juice." After a few minutes, when the juice did not come, Srila Prabhupada began repeatedly ringing his bell. As Gopinath at last entered with the juice, Prabhupada spoke out angrily, "I'm sick with no appetite, and when I have little hunger, then you take hours." He said he didn't want the juice, but Gopinath put it on the table anyway. Srila Prabhupada picked the glass up and drank. "You are serving me so nicely," he said quietly. "I'm always chastising you. When one gets old, he becomes short tempered. Gopinath had not felt bad about the reprimand, but on these humble words from Srila Prabhupada, he felt terrible. Gopinath became so emotional that he could hardly speak. Yet he managed in a choked voice to say, "Please, Srila Prabhupada, don't speak like that. I make mistakes, and if you don't correct them, then who will?" There were many little personal exchanges like this between Srila Prabhupada and his assistants, but sometimes he would be more silent and inward than they had ever seen him before. He would spend time chanting and reading, and only on special occasions would he see a guest. Srila Prabhupada agreed to an interview with Mr. Koshi, assistant editor for the current magazine. Mr. Koshi's approach was not reverent but provocative, in search of a lively interview. Prabhupada was interested in speaking to many people through a magazine article, but he had no interest in flattering the editor or in compromising. Especially of late, as at the Bombay Pandal, Prabhupada was speaking in the most plain, direct words. Whoever approached him, he informed about Krishna and their illusion in not accepting Krishna. Mr. Koshi asked Prabhupada why he had been recognized first in countries other than India. Because they, Indians, are so poor that they cannot purchase diamond, said Srila Prabhupada. But diamond must be there. They are so poor hearted, their education has been so poorly given that they cannot understand. Poorly given? Asked Mr. Koshi. Yes, replied Prabhupada. They are teaching, you are this body, jump like cats and dogs. That's all. That is nationalism? It is, you are this body, jump like cats and dogs. A group of crows gather together, caw, caw, caw. That has been taught. Make a group and crow. But you don't find this word nationalism in the Bhagavad Gita. These are all borrowed words. So, what is your alternative? Asked Mr. Koshi. We are preaching internationalism, said Prabhupada. Everyone welcome. Come to Krishna consciousness. Here is Christian, Hindu. Here is African, Mohammedan. Everything. That is real United Nations. If they were thinking that I am American, then why are they after a poor Indian man? Indians are known outside India as poverty stricken, and that's a fact. But actually, we are not poverty stricken. If we cultivate our own standard of knowledge, Bhagavad Gita, then we are the richest. We can give the whole world these gifts. Prabhupada said it was regrettable that scholars and politicians pretend to be students of Bhagavad Gita without even knowing the difference between the body and the owner of the body. They do not even know the first lessons of Bhagavad Gita. So, what is the solution? Asked Mr. Koshi. Solution? Prabhupada shouted. You learn it. But they don't want to do it, said Mr. Koshi. Then they will go to hell, said Prabhupada. What can be done? If you want to cut your own throat, you can do it. Who can save you? But our duty is to say, don't commit suicide. Mr. Koshi made a case for drinking tea and coffee. He could not see how such things were sinful. Prabhupada explained that they were intoxicants. But there are several million like me, said Mr. Koshi. Millions of zeros does not mean one, said Srila Prabhupada. Zero is zero. If there are 7 million zeros added together, you cannot make one. Mr. Koshi also wanted to ask why Prabhupada paid so much attention only to Krishna, since there were hundreds of gods in the pantheon, but Prabhupada stopped him short. Mr. Koshi asked about the brainwashing controversy. There are so many accusations, said Prabhupada, but now it is in the court. But you don't require recognition of any court, do you? Asked Mr. Koshi. You require, replied Prabhupada laughing. I don't require, you require. Yes, until then, said Mr. Koshi, there is doubt. Because you are after the court, said Prabhupada, after the judges. We are not after anyone. We are after one, Krishna. That's all. We know what our duty is. Srila Prabhupada further explained that opposition was coming in America because so many young people were taking to Krishna consciousness. Young men are taking it, said Prabhupada. They are preaching. They have sacrificed their lives. So they are intelligent persons. They can understand that they should not die. Krishna consciousness is not an old man's recreation. No, said Mr. Koshi, but you are responsible for it. I am not, said Prabhupada. Krishna is responsible. I am just distributing. My duty is to distribute. That's all. Mr. Koshi asked Prabhupada if he was happy with the way his movement had spread, and Prabhupada replied, why shall I not be happy? I am not manufacturing anything. That is not my business. Jumping from one topic to another in search of readable magazine copy, Mr. Koshi asked Prabhupada, how is your health now? Not good, Prabhupada replied. Health or no health, it is the outward machine. That doesn't matter. But if it is a good machine, then it helps. That's all. Otherwise, machine, good or bad, it doesn't matter. What happens when the machine stops? If your machine has stopped, Prabhupada said, you take another machine. That's all. Why shall I be overwhelmed? Oh, machine is going, machine is going. Therefore, Krishna says, "You are lamenting for the machine, you nonsense. That is not the Pandita's business." Mr. Koshi, what is your typical day like? What time do you get up and how do you spend your day? How can I stay? Replied Prabhupada. How can I say? Replied Prabhupada. I have got so many things. Tamal Krishna Maharaj, sensing that the interview had gone about as far as it could profitably go, spoke up. Srila Prabhupada, he said, I want to suggest that if he has some further questions, we would we could try to answer them, and then if there are still unanswered ones. No, said Srila Prabhupada. He has no answer on the spiritual matter. He will ask me some political questions. We have no function in politics. Mr. Koshi disregarded the signal from Prabhupada's secretary and went on with his questions. You see, he said, when I see a group of young people like these boys here dancing in the street, it is something jarring to my eyes. What is the necessity for the chant? One man's food is another man's poison, Prabhupada replied laconically. No, no, said Mr. Koshi, there must be a purpose behind it. Yes, said Prabhupada, that is the way to spiritual understanding in this age. Mr. Koshi asked about illicit sex, and Prabhupada replied that sex should be used only within marriage for begetting children. Don't you think that the children should be given freedom to choose voluntarily? Do you want to give freedom to your children? Asked Prabhupada. I'm asking you, said Mr. Koshi. No, no, said Prabhupada. What is the use of giving freedom to a child with a razor? He will cut his throat, that's all. But at a later age, perhaps? Later age, yes, said Prabhupada. That is enjoined. When a child is 16 years old, he can do as he likes, not before that. Now Mr. Koshi was ready to wrap it up. What is your message to the world? He asked Prabhupada. Prabhupada and the devotees laughed. Again you ask me, said Prabhupada. After reading Ramayana, you are asking me whose father is Sita. I have explained already. Before Mr. Koshi left the room, Prabhupada requested, write nice article. Don't worry about that, Mr. Koshi replied. It is my job. Srila Prabhupada made sure Mr. Koshi took prasadam before leaving. Disciples continued to come to Bombay in hopes of getting direct instructions from Srila Prabhupada. Much could be done through his secretary, avoiding how are you feeling conversations, yet sometimes Prabhupada did meet directly with certain disciples. He was still involved, at least through his secretary, in the most important of dealings of his movement and its leaders. By mail, he heard Atreya Rishi's plans for introducing Krishna consciousness in Karachi, Pakistan, and he said the plans were intelligent. He saw and approved a new film by Yadubara. He met with Hamsadutta Swami and requested him to develop the preaching in Sri Lanka. He heartily approved Prabha Vishnu's going to preach in Dhaka, Bangladesh. He heard of the need for strong preachers in Hyderabad, and when Srila Prabhupada's disciples, Sridhar Swami, came to see him, he asked him to go there. He saw Lokanath Swami and encouraged him in his program of traveling by bullock cart and preaching in the Indian villages. Lokanath Swami had brought Srila Prabhupada a Marathi translation of The Perfection of Yoga, and Srila Prabhupada sat for some time listening to Lokanath Maharaj's read aloud, although Prabhupada said he didn't know the Marathi language. When an ISKCON Bombay Pujari wanted to know if some Shaligram Shilas were bona fide, Srila Prabhupada agreed to see them, confirmed that they were genuine, and advised how they should be worshipped. Certain managerial affairs Prabhupada would try to avoid, although often to no avail, such as concerning the delays in completing the construction work at Bombay. He could hear the sounds of the work, and sometimes it was noisy, but it was the slowness that perturbed him. Sometimes he would sit silently for hours and then remark to his secretary that he was very upset by the construction delays. You are sincere workers, Prabhupada told the devotees in charge, but no intelligence. I can see that this construction work is not going on. Am I to close my eyes? I can do that, but I am a sensible man. How can I close my eyes? They are all giving their excuses. Srila Prabhupada analyzed the different leaders and on finding defects in each of them concluded that they were incompetent to speed up the construction. When Tamal Krishna Maharaj suggested that maybe they should consult a life member who was expert in construction, Prabhupada approved. So Mr. Mohatta, an engineer and life member, was brought to see Srila Prabhupada. At that time, the construction company was demanding that all past bills be paid before they would go on with the work. But Srila Prabhupada said he wouldn't pay any more bills until the work was completed. Then all bills would be paid in full. Although some of the devotees were more inclined to pay the company right away, at least partially, so that the work would go on smoothly, Mr. Mohatta at once appreciated Prabhupada's reasoning and began dealing with the construction company on that basis. He got results and Prabhupada was relieved. Thus, although Prabhupada was eager to retire fully, he did not feel he could remove himself from ISKCON management yet. Srila Prabhupada had no regular doctor. From time to time, a Kaviraj might show up to give a diagnosis and some medicine, but Prabhupada wouldn't take it very seriously. He didn't consider these Kavirajas very qualified, and if the medicine tasted bitter or produced any bad effect, he would stop taking it. Everything was up to Krishna, and a doctor couldn't change that. Prabhupada mentioned the relative merits of Ayurvedic and homeopathic medicines, but like any other mundane topic, medicine was something he showed little interest in. He began having the newspapers read to him. Much of the news dealt with the downfall of the Congress party and the reform promises of the Janata party. From time to time, Prabhupada would comment, "These rascals, wherever they go, they create trouble." One time he commented, "Manda sumanda mataya." They have got a conception which is very, very bad. Their religious, social, and political conceptions are all condemned. Prabhupada's conclusion, what the fools and rascals are doing, that is the newspapers. Prabhupada directed Tamal Krishna Maharaj and others to write letters and articles replying to some of the news stories. In one news editorial, the writer criticized formal education as corrupting the minds of children. Educationists and researchers, the writer urged, should look into the question and suggest remedies. Srila Prabhupada. That means the rascals do not know that godlessness and godless education will be like that. The teachers who are suggesting they are themselves bad and they are leading. They do not know what is the defect. You can write to them. You leaders, you do not know what is the cause. That is the cause. Harav abhaktasya kuto mahadguna manorathena sati dhavato bahihi. Without God consciousness, there cannot be any education, there cannot be any good qualities. You do not know this, and you are simply crying in the wilderness. All the education and its propaganda is to make the whole world godless, although the most scientific knowledge of God is there in the Bhagavad Gita. Write him, give him a slap. You do not know. Another article, 100 million Harijans pick a new messiah. Observe the death anniversary of Dr. Amritsar, the former champion of human rights for the untouchable caste. The writer lamented that the untouchables, termed Harijans by Mahatma Gandhi, were so downtrodden and presented such a baffling problem to the leaders and people of India. Srila Prabhupada asked Tamal Krishna Maharaj to write to the editor, explaining how Krishna consciousness uplifts the most fallen. We shall elevate them to go back to Godhead, whatever they may be, said Prabhupada. The defect was that Gandhi started this Harijan movement, keeping them where they are and at the same time changing their name by rubber stamp to Harijan. That must be failure. Just by artificially giving them money or stamping approval, it won't change anything. You have to change him, and they have no plan for that. We should not misuse this word Harijan, which means the personal associate of God. Prabhupada said that some of the senior devotees should regularly write on topics which he would suggest. More and more, they should take up the management, write essays, and give lectures, transmitting the arguments he would give them. Let's pause here. Yes. Hmm. Yeah, so Prabhupada knows there's only one solution for all problems, one global panacea for all problems, which is Krishna consciousness, God consciousness. And like we were saying, yeah, people are slowly from God, they thought forgetting God, they will be good. And now even good is gone. Right? And it's only Great Depression. So like that, everybody in the world is suffering. They're not realizing the solution, and when the solution comes, then they close their eyes or ears, just like the monkeys, right? They don't want to hear, don't want to like hear. That journalist was asking, what is the point of chanting? Like the Prabhupada is giving all the solution, and then he's asking, okay, who's the father of Sita? So like that, people are very ignorant and at the same time unintelligent, that they're not willing to try out the solution. Try out the solution. It's a science. Prabhupada says again and again. You have to. It's if we are all from science background, this process. You take to this process, and you. It's like a hypothesis. You try out, do the experiment by yourself. Right? Prabhupada says, chant and be happy. So chant, and then you will see for yourself. What happiness this brings. This happiness is not at the mundane level, at the material level, but it's at the transcendental level, and it will give us happiness and joy and bliss, which is not just temporary but eternal. And it is only going to increase day by day. Right? Like Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam Pratipadam. So it is like at every step it is only going to increase, like the waves of the ocean. Also we see they are unlimited, they keep on coming. Right? But still the height of the waves of the ocean that we see here is limited. But the waves of the ocean of the spiritual ecstasy, bliss, is unlimited. So unfortunately, our own people, Indian people, like recently this past week when I was at work, I was talking to some of my teammates, and they were just like, they were just trying to pacify two team members who were kind of against each other. So, and both were girls, like ladies. So I don't know, whatever the misunderstanding is. I took over this team recently, just a couple of months ago, and there's some friction going on between these two women in the team for maybe some months now. And both are from Indian background, and I was ultimately I just took them aside because I've been hearing multiple issues from about them from different people on the team. And eventually I was like really surprised, because again, when you forget our own culture, you're coming from an Indian background, Vedic culture, and you're just fighting and arguing on petty things which is not even not even important. So anyways, I was just reminded of that, and then I took them separately, and then I was telling them yesterday. I was talking to this other girl again, and she seems to be more reasonable than the other one. And like I'd shared our program, and I think when we went to that our Durga Puja and all those events, I keep sharing those pictures with my team, just so that they understand the value of our Vedic heritage. And many of them appreciate, even the Americans appreciate. Actually, Americans appreciate more than Indians. So that is the irony, that Indians are forgetting our own Vedic heritage, our culture, and that is why we are suffering more than Americans. Americans, at least, they do their job. They live with their own life, and they're not bothered with others, issues, versus Indians coming from India are in this foreign land, and they are suffering more. I feel sometimes, looking at the pathetic situation of how Indians are in this country. So they are trying to become more Americans than Americans themselves. So that is the plight of you know Indian citizens coming from India. So anyway, but yeah, a lot of things. I was driving back from downtown yesterday, and like Prabhupada was talking about, like we are just following this ant-like civilization, ant-hill civilization, and just blind leading the blind kind of thing, right? Of course, there was a lot of traffic on the road, so I had gone for my medical appointment, and um, like Prabhupada was saying the other day, we are living in like pigeonholes, even at work, like we've talked in the past. Most of the buildings, they're without windows and doors. Like Prabhupada was saying, when he's in Bombay, he was feeling so nice because he could open the doors and windows and he could let the fresh air come in. Versus here in America and Europe, everywhere, it is like closed rooms. It's almost feels like, when I went my appointment yesterday, it was all like, small room, dingy rooms. People are working like crazy. But again, people are also wanting to go home because it's Friday evening, and everybody is like, in the mood to just get out. So that shows that nobody wants to work, right? Everybody wants to be free. So that's why everybody, when Friday comes, they say, "Thank God it's Friday," right? TGIF. And then Monday comes, everybody is so morose. So nobody wants to work, but the civilization has made such a orchestration that everybody is working without willingly without willing, working willingly, and without any joy, right? Everybody is wanting to become free on Friday. So anyway, but I was remembering Prabhupada saying that, people are working in these pigeonholes, like small, small rooms, even doctors' offices in the hospitals. It's like so small, there are no windows. It just feels like, you're crammed in a small pigeonhole. And while driving back, like I was saying, when I was driving back from downtown yesterday, it was full of traffic, a lot of rain, and like one car following the other. It was almost literally feeling like, like ants. We've seen ants, हम चींटियां देखते हैं घर पे, चींटियां कैसे चलती है. It just goes one behind the other, right? It just follows in one line. So like that, on the highways, you look at these cars just stuck on traffic, following slowly, just crawling. It was almost like Prabhupada's words were coming true. We are like an ant civilization, just following crazily one after the other in the so-called four-legged cars, just like animals, without any higher consciousness. So yeah, so that ant civilization and pigeonholes, working like dogs and hogs. Yeah, that is what a true acharya, again, Prabhupada as guru gives that divya gyan with which we are able to relate to what's going on around us in this world. Okay. Anything else anybody would like to share? Mit Prabhu, anything you want to say?
No, Prabhu, thank you so much for sharing the stories today.
Mhm. We are all from Kroger, so Krishna's. Krishna, O Gopinath, Eknath, Radhanath. I keep saying our Kroger is Krishna, O Gopinath, Eknath, Radhanath. So, yeah, thank you. Your again, yeah, and I look at your initials, it reminds me of Prabhupada, Abhay Charan Aravinda, Swami Srila Prabhupada. So, thank you for being a good uh, follower of Srila Prabhupada. Very well. Okay, anybody else would like to say anything? Anything that you liked, learned, loved from today's reading? Anything that happened in your life that you could relate to what Prabhupada has been speaking so far? पवन प्रभु जी आप कुछ बोलेंगे?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, no, all good. Thank you for your nice service every morning. Just seems like watching the film of Prabhupada. Thank you so very much for your kind service.
Thank you, Prabhu ji. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Yes, Ritesh Prabhu, anything from you?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you
Krishna.
for reading with such a uh, enthusiasm. It was really a delight to read along with you. The one thing that I really liked about Prabhupada that he was so consistent, so persistent, and one sentence just stuck my head that without the God's consciousness, without Krishna's consciousness, there is no real education. And that is very, very true. We may all belong to some stream of science, but without that Krishna's consciousness, we cannot think goodness in science. But if we take the God's consciousness out of the science, then the world can be very destructive, which we have seen so many times. And when we put Krishna's consciousness before anything else, everything becomes so delightful. We start getting the meaning of life. We start getting meaning of every things that science can explain, which has already been explained. There are some people who can correlate science with the higher consciousness, and there are some people who are totally different from what we study. But it is so true that without the God's consciousness, without Krishna's consciousness, there is no meaning of anything else. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Very well. Yes, Prabhu. Very nice. And like you said, ultimately that is the only solution. And like Prabhupada here also he was saying to that journalist that we are teaching internationalism, not nationalism. Right. So all doesn't matter your skin color, body, where you come from. Ultimately, we are all spirit souls, part and parcel of the same Lord. So in that sense, yeah, everybody is, and like even we saw Prabhupada's disciples, he's saying, like, you talked about science, and so Prabhupada didn't differentiate between scientists or those who were not scientists, right? Like his disciples here, we saw some of the examples. Loknath Swami Maharaj, he preaches, even today he does, after so many years of service, he teaches, he goes on bullock carts to the villages, remote villages, and he preaches, right? And then some were scientists, like Sarup Damodar Maharaj, he was like us. He had done his master's here in US and he's done his PhD. He was a scientist. And then, he wrote that book, Scientific Base of Krishna Consciousness, and Prabhupada was giving him the opportunity to give those classes on in Bombay Pandal to so that modern educated men who were from science background can understand, right? So Prabhupada again, he was all inclusive, and that's what he says. Krishna consciousness is all inclusive. We are not excluding anybody because this is the movement of the Lord. God as the eternal Father and as the Father of everybody. So Prabhupada, you know, was a global Acharya, but at the same time, he was also so personal with everyone. He was meeting everyone where they were, right? So it doesn't matter if it's a scientist or an engineer or a lawyer or a doctor, everybody, he engaged all of them in the service of the Lord, in the service of humanity by doing this Paraupkar. Jivan Sarthaka Kari, Kara Paraupkar. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hari
Krishna.
Bol. You always give a very nice explanation and you're always up to the top of the things on Prabhupada's teaching. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Hari Bol. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Okay, so we'll pause here and we'll see you all this evening at our Saturday weekly program. वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णवृंद की जय। जगद्गुरु शिल प्रभुपाद की जय। शिल प्रभुपाद लीलामृत की जय। निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे। हरि हरि बोल।
Hare Hare.
कृष्णा।
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.